Relationships are even more critical to overall success than your technical skills. We don't learn that at school, do we?
Profmed Future Professional. Shared values, one future.
Justin Cohen is an international speaker. He's a best-selling author and he's a doctoral candidate to the Middlesex University. Justin, thanks for joining us today.
Good to be with you, Mike.
And here we are. We're going to talk about winning with relationships.
Well, Mike, I've written a number of books, a number of programs, and I guess I say this about all my books. When I just bring out one, it feels like this is the one. But, when you look at the significance of relationships, look at the research. So there's probably the most powerful longitudinal study of all time, comes out of Harvard University, started in the 1930s. And it's in fact still running. So it's now studying the children and grandchildren of those original subjects. And it's called the Grant Study of Thriving. And that's what they really wanted to understand. What does it take to be happy and successful? And they fully expected it would be, whether you went to Harvard or not, what your IQ was. Well, in fact, they found there was one factor that was more important than anything else. In fact, people who registered higher on this earn on average $150,000 a year more than those who are lowest. And not only that, they're happier. So what is that one factor? The strength of your relationships. Relationships are even more critical to overall success than your technical skills. And here's the thing, we don't learn that at school, do we? I mean, don't get me wrong, I want my doctor to have great technical skills, I want my broker to have great, but that's going to get you through the door. It's not going to take you up the ladder.
Yeah, that EQ is so important. And I think we've realized where the cracks are in our teams, in our society, in our general professional relationships, now that we've had to spend the last 12, 14 months effectively in isolation, right?
Well, absolutely. We really do feel it. And the truth is, here in Africa, we've always known it. The Zulu have a saying, Umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu. A person is only a person because of other people. And this is the philosophy of Ubuntu. Yeah, I am because we are. So yes, we have realized, look, I truly believe that this is not just the new normal. I think it's the new better. I think there's tremendous advantages. We've been able to go to work without going to work. We know that has increased productivity. It's given us more time with our families, but we also know that it has disconnected us. So we've seen creative collaboration going down. We've got less time with our clients. And I think we can compensate for this. I think we need to have more meetings. We're not just going into policies and procedures, but we were actually just connecting with one another, getting to know one another. We know that people do business with people they know, trust, and like. But if I don't know you, I can't trust you, and then I can't like you. So we need to create opportunities to just connect with one another, just to get to know one another better. And yes, right now, we need to do that virtually.
There's also extremes. I mean, it's like now that we are on Zoom calls, Teams, etc., whatever the tech is that you're using, it feels like we've gone into people's personal spaces to a higher degree. Like I can be chatting to someone from the C-suite. I would never have been invited to his home in the past. Exactly. Now I'm busy there in his living room and I feel like I'm part of the furniture.
Exactly. And that's the upside, is that we've actually, in some ways, it's humanized people, right? If we only saw our chief executive in the formality of the office, now we see him with his cat or with his kid crying.
In his pajamas.
His pajamas sometimes, and that camera dips down and you see what's going on underneath. You know that the clothing stores are saying that they've the upper part of the clothing, the blouses, the shirts, that they've done roaring business. The lower part, the trousers, the skirts, apparently that's definitely has not been selling as robustly.
The 1.5 piece suit trend.
Right, exactly.
So what I think is quite interesting about that is that now you've been invited to the homes, but at the same time there's no transfer of energy. There's only pixels and only like white noise coming off your screen. So what's the difference there in terms of those relationships? And psychologically, we don't necessarily realize that we've lost those non-verbal cues and those in-person cues.
And there's certain things that we can do. Look, one of the things and one of the reasons why Zoom meetings can be a little bit more stressful than normal is that you're looking at somebody like this, eye to eye. Now, generally, if you're looking at somebody that close eye to eye, you are either about to make love to them or you're about to kill them. Yeah. And now you're doing this with everybody. So, just a little tip, sometimes just sitting back a little bit, you don't have to be right up there against the camera. Decompression time between meetings is really helpful. Just taking time out, stretching, moving. Some of the stress of just sitting, we know that neurotransmitters like serotonin, which is boosted by drugs like Prozac, the rave drug ecstasy, is actually depleted, right? That happy chemical is depleted when we sit still for long periods of time. So standing up, I do a lot of my calls now. If I'm not looking at someone, I don't need to look at them. I do them walking around, right? To get that serotonin going. Also, we know that stress is produced by adrenaline, right? Again, if you're sitting still, the adrenaline is building and building. So again, you want to move, that gets the adrenaline absorbed into the muscles. So there's a few things that we can do to, I think, mitigate some of the downsides. And I think we're learning. This has been a process of learning for us.
It really has. And what I'd like to dive into a little bit is Dunbar's number. For those of us who have obviously spent more time at home, are we working from home or are we living at work? That whole dichotomy. And then also off the back of that, Dunbar says that the average human is able to manage about 150 relationships. And I think if we go into that space, if we think about the growth of social media, the growth of podcasting, the growth of all these digital channels as we've consumed more content from being at home, what has that done to our personal relationships? What has that done to our Facebook friends, our Twitter followers? What have these two worlds collided in terms of how the tech and the humanity has either benefited or had a con from?
Look, I'm a big lover of progress. We are in the fourth industrial revolution, the most unprecedented transformation in the history of humankind. And we're hitting some speed bumps. I believe that the biggest threat, quite frankly, to human civilization right now is disinformation. Fake news, junk news, conspiracy theories, which has just been proliferated, right? Facebook has given a megaphone to this nonsense. But I think that they are now mitigating. They're shifting those algorithms. I just think we have to be very nervous. One of the things, Mike, that really concerns me, one of my areas in human transformation is emotional well-being. And what is shocking is that we live in the most unprecedented real comfort and safety in the history of humankind. I know when people hear that, they think that's crazy, but just think about longevity has increased, healthcare has increased, and yet we've seen tremendous increases in emotional distress, anxiety, and depression. Now, sometimes people say, oh, well, it's the snowflake generation. They're just, better at reporting. Not true. Suicide levels have increased from 2000 to 2016 by 30%. With women and girls, it's 50%. Now, the reasoning behind that is varied. But one reason that is quite compelling is social media. Now, yes, social media can be a tremendous good. I use Facebook marketing to build my own business. But when it comes to this looking at these idealized versions of other people's lives, the trolling, that affects particularly girls, can be really destructive emotionally. And I think that has played a role in these increases. So I think we need to be very careful what we allow into the garden of our minds. Yeah, there is this onslaught, and it's very addictive. It's built that way because Mark Zuckerberg's also on an algorithm. His algorithm is let's make as much money as we possibly can, right? That's his algorithm. They've got an ATM machine, and the way they do that is preference negative news and fake news because that's what sells advertising.
Social Dilemma, incredible story. That's an incredible docu on at the moment.
Absolutely.
And it delves into all of these things. It plays into exactly your serotonin and your dopamine levels and that little red icon that says new message, friend in your area, add this person. You have a conversation with someone at the coffee shop, add them onto WhatsApp, and suddenly Facebook's suggesting them as a friend.
Right.
All to just keep you in that platform.
Correct. And the bottomless bowl, you're just constantly in it.
Cat videos. Next video.
You got to be careful. I've got a friend who is a seriously smart guy. This guy is a Hollywood director. He's got an IQ in the stratosphere. He got addicted to TikTok.
He's just dancing on his head.
He was just he said it is just so addictive, these little videos and so he had to say, okay, like a drug, I got to go cold turkey. I got to get off this thing. Yeah. So, we got to understand that we are being our attention. The most valuable commodity is attention. And we've got to be very protective of our attention and decide where it's going to go. What is our default and where it's going.
What I want to talk about now is almost like how our lives have molded. It's become like this hybrid living now. Before, you would have gone to the office, you would have almost extracted yourself from your place of living. Now that these two elements have become blended, like, how do we go forward as a professional community? How do we deal with clients? How do we work with delivery of presentations? An architect who would have taken the model of the home, now they're having to do all of this stuff virtually and remotely. Like, where do we go from this phase, and considering post-vaccination, like, where do we go with this new world? Do we go back to hanging on to the stuff that we've craved? The more digital savvy we become, the more we crave human interaction. Or do we start forging a new path?
Well, Mike, yes, we are in this unbelievable transformation, but I was just doing a session yesterday for a bunch of brokers, and we were talking about one of my other programs is called Pitch to Win. It's about pitching, it's about getting business on board. And it's now, we talk about, it's not a physical world, it's not a digital world, it's a fidgetal world. It's a fidgetal world. And I was like, guys, look, it's a fidgetal world, but you know what? The principles remain. We adapt them, but they remain. And let's talk about the most important one. And it's the first law in winning with relationships. And this is never going to change, whether you're in sales, whether you're in service, whether you're in leadership. Quite frankly, whether you are an architect or a broker or a actuarial scientist, this is going to remain for you, and it is give to get. If you want to get more, you need to give more. Do not try and be a person of success, be a person of service, and success will follow. The more you give. Adam Grant, professor at Wharton Business School, says you can pretty much divide people into three: givers, takers, or matchers. Givers are people who say, it's sow and you shall reap. Maybe not immediately, but you get it back, because who do you want as a friend? Who do you want to marry? Who do you want to employ? Who do you want as a supplier? Who do you want as your broker? Who do you want as your professional? You want somebody who cares. And here's the thing. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Yeah. When you think about it, you've got two people that are giving you the same product, same service. Who are you going for? The guy who thinks they just want to get the commission, they just want to get the money, they just want to get, or the one who you feel they really care about me. This person, they're going to be there for me. As I say, I do a lot of work with brokers, and the most successful brokers that I work with are the most giving. They're the most loving. They care deeply about their clients. Those clients would not go anywhere else. They become part of the family. They're not just a service provider. They are a partner. They are givers. So Adam Grant says, givers, takers, or matchers. Who are you going to be, right? So then you get takers. Takers are people who say it's a dog-eat-dog's world. You better take before somebody else does. What those people don't realize is that they're the dog, right? And then you get matchers, and matchers are people who say, if you sow, then I will sow. You don't want to be on a team full of matchers because everybody starves. Now, of course, what we see is overall, look, you can be a taker, and there are many takers. We might have just got rid of one in the Oval Office recently, so you can actually get to high office and be a taker. But you've got to ask yourself, how will Jacob Zuma go down in history? How will Donald Trump go down in history? Yeah, so you can get there, and if you give to the right people, but ultimately it's not a very successful strategy. Giving is the strategy. And here's the beautiful thing, because I know that we're talking about Profmed, and as a proud Profmed member, I've been a member for 23 years now. Let's talk a bit about our health here. Mike, when we talk about relationships, we're not just talking about success in business. We're not just talking about our success. We're talking about our health. Do you know that people with the weakest bonds are 50% more likely to die prematurely? Now, smoking's not a good idea, but if you've got very weak relationships, it's worse on your health than being a smoker. Worse on your health.
How do you fill up your tank? You're a very energetic guy. You feel like a giver. So how do you fill up your tank after putting all this energy?
I'm doing it right now with you. Like, for me, this is like the idea that you and I can connect and share ideas and bond. We got a little bit of a history that goes back 20 years.
Yeah.
It revs us up. Folks, we are social creatures, right? We are social creatures, and we forget that at our peril. And some people say, the way that I am is the way that I am. No, we don't come out of the womb with our social skills. I never used to have very good social skills. I like to think that they have improved because I've put this into practice. Now, this is a handbook. Somebody called Winning with Relationships, How to Win Friends and Influence People for the 21st Century. And that was like the best compliment I ever got, because I don't know if you ever came across that book. It was written in the 1930s. That book changed my life. Which, it's a little out of date now, but just the idea of how do we actually build great bonds with people? Being a giver, appreciation, listening, right? It's not about you, it's about them. I mean, these are fundamental principles, and God bless the school system, but they're not taught. And this is what makes the difference between truly good to great, okay to outstanding. It's your social skills.
Feelings are science. It's energy. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can be only transferred from one being to the next.
Exactly, and we feed off it, right? I mean, Mike, another one I've got to share with you. This is a Harvard study. So first, the bad news. If you have a major stress in your life, you go bankrupt, you get divorced, you've got a 30% increase of chance of dying over the next year. If you're somebody who regularly helps others, who regularly serves others, your increased chances of dying are zero. And scientists think that it's got to do with a chemical, a neurotransmitter in the brain called oxytocin. Oxytocin is emitted in mother's milk. It creates that lovely warm bond between mother and baby. But it's actually also a natural anti-inflammatory that protects the heart against stress-related damage. So how do you get the oxytocin flowing? You do not need to look for a breastfeeding mother. All you need to do is help someone, connect with someone, serve someone. Yeah, those random acts of kindness. This is another one. I got to share this with you. Talk about happiness. If you make an unexpected cup of tea for your partner, right? It certainly raises their happiness. The research shows it boosts your happiness 50% more than theirs. Now, that is no excuse to tell Taryn how much happier she'd be if she made you a cup of tea. But it does show us that actually the gift is in the giving. Yeah, we're actually rewarded with this neurochemistry when we are givers. Yeah, because the brain knows that when you're a giver, you're just going to do better. I mean, this in a way, this is the most selfish thing that you can do is be a giver.
Tell me about love languages. Believer or skeptic?
No, I think there's a lot. Interesting. I'm doing work with sales teams on realizing that clients have love languages. Clients.
That's great. So client love languages. Let's just run through a few of those.
We look at love languages. Look, the one thing about love language is the idea that, people want different things and you want to know what it is they want. Appreciation is one, gifts is another, time is another, right? Attention. So all of these, but I will say this, as much as we talk about those different love languages, Mike, the one that I think is universal is appreciation. The number one reason people leave a job, lack of appreciation. The number one complaint spouses have about one another, lack of appreciation. We have a negativity bias. So we're always looking for what's wrong and we don't appreciate what's right. And it's natural, but cyanide is also natural. And so what we have to do is we have to actively be more appreciative and actually make a commitment. Every day, I'm going to catch 3 people doing things right. And I did a lot of work on culture, corporate culture. If you want to see, and Harvard study shows your top corporate cultures 10 times the revenue of the weak cultures. The most powerful way you can raise a corporate culture, bring praise and appreciation and celebration in. Be liberal with praise, appreciation, and celebration. High praise organizations, high performance organizations. I've seen that again and again and again. It doesn't come naturally. We have to do it deliberately. When you go home, just make that commitment. I'm going to tell my partner, what I appreciate about it. And here's what happens. This is the most powerful leadership tool. What gets appreciated gets repeated. What gets appreciated gets repeated. Number 2, very few things sustainably increase happiness. Gratitude is one of them. When you're thanking someone, you're giving gratitude for having this person in your life. So you feel richer. Yeah. You feel better. Yeah. And number 3, you appreciate them. They start smiling. It's contagious. You start smiling too. And you got this little party going on. One of the most powerful tools to boost any relationship. Appreciation.
And that's the thing, by having been in a mask culture, don't get to see those smiles as often.
Exactly.
And then when you smile, it automatically brought joy to my own face.
Mike, there's a part of the brain called the mirror neural network. We mirror the emotions of the people around us. So when somebody smiles at you, even if they don't smile back, that person doesn't smile when you smile at them, the part of your brain that activates smiling is triggered. If you were in a brain scan, you'd see it would actually be triggered. So we are interconnected. Your emotion is contagious. That's why when we talk about pitching, one of the other programs that I do is the research and major study, 70 different organizations in Europe found the number one factor determining the success of a pitch is energy and enthusiasm, right? Because people move emotionally before they move any other way.
Justin, we could sit here all day talking about relationships. Let's give yourself a quick plug. Tell the people in the camera, like, how do we find you? Do we find you on social?
Thank you, Mike.
How do I get hold of your new book? Exclusives,
Great.
I assume?
Absolutely. So it's at Exclusives. It's at actually most bookstores around South Africa, and in fact internationally too. And maybe if we just put on these little details, which is if anybody wants to connect with me at justinpresents.com or LinkedIn or Facebook, Justin Presents. And
Got to get you onto TikTok. It's the new
got to
generation.
get me, apparently.
Got to get you onto
Get my
TikTok.
Hollywood. It's the only way my friend will get to see me.
That's it. Yeah. But it's been incredibly talking to Justin Cohen today. It's an important takeout as we finish today's session of this vodcast, looking at appreciation. Remember to drive the appreciation internally for your teams. Thank them. We've spent so much time really just sending very succinct and sometimes short messages with no tone. Show people that you're showing up and what they mean to you, both in your personal and your professional life. Thanks, Justin.
Thanks, Mike.
Profmed Future Professional. Shared values, one future.